Hello, Philippines. This is Eric Lecain with World News Jam. We bring you the most interesting stories from around the world each week. We just don't give you the news, but we tell you the story behind the news, as well as read and answer your questions in an entertaining and easy to understand way. So please join us on DZRJ 810 AM Radio Bandito TV and get yourself updated with all the interesting news of the week from around the world right here on DZRJ's World News Jam.
Watch and listen to World News Jam every Sunday from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. airing on Sky Cable Channel 224 and on all DTT boxes, simulcasting online on Facebook and YouTube. Listen and watch on your mobile devices. Just search DZRJ Radio Bandido.
Hello, Philippines, and welcome to the World News Jam right here on DZRJ and RJTV. My name is Eric Lecain, and I am joined, as always, with the wonderful 𝗪cie Tolentino. Now, 𝗪cie Tolentino, we are deep in the Christmas season now.
Yes, it's December.
I knew we were in the Christmas season because it took me almost an hour to go 120 meters the other day in the car. So
wow, yeah.
I know it's Christmas time.
Well, that's nothing. One hour only. That's nothing.
Only.
It took me 2 hours from PGC to what do you call it, Glorieta. So
that's what I was telling somebody. I said, you know, I can get out of my car and walk backwards faster than my car is going.
Oh yes, yes.
But speaking of Christmas, you know, it wasn't very long ago where our Christmas news was just befuddled with COVID. That's all we could talk about. And, you know, now it just seems so long ago that we talked about COVID. In fact, when somebody says that somebody has COVID, it sounds kind of weird. It's like, what? Somebody has COVID? I thought that was, I thought that was over. And now I started looking it up, and in the first week of October here in the Philippines, they had 1,264 cases of COVID and 5 deaths that were attributed to COVID. But in December, not so much as is in the WHO has COVID, because the president of the Philippines got COVID.
Yes.
And it just, like I said, it just sounds so weird when it says that somebody got COVID. Now, the president, it turns out, he got through it pretty well.
Yeah.
Pretty easy.
Yeah, he is being monitored, and
he did the isolation and continued to work. Did those things, did an isolation, and supposedly today he is just fine.
Yeah.
So good for him. But it's actually been 4 years since the pandemic first emerged, and the disease still seems to be affecting us and killing us. And the people that it's killing, and when the president here in the Philippines got it, I kind of lost touch with COVID. We hadn't talked about it in a long time. Every once in a while we talk about it. Some little scare comes out, some new variant, and so I started looking up, and people still die from COVID, and the people that die the most from COVID are the people that didn't take the vaccine. So that now is the number one person. You know, usually it was an older person. Now it's just people that didn't take the vaccine. But it turns out there are a lot of interesting things happening in COVID now. There's new variants. Singapore doubled its cases last month. There's a new, it's called 𝗪tože variant, or BA 2.86. That is the new and improved, the latest version of COVID. Its numbers have tripled in the last few weeks. And the problem is there's some issues with the vaccine, that it offers some protection, but not that great against this new variant. But, you know, we knew that. We talked about this, last year, I think, that there would be vaccines, and then there's going to be variants that the vaccine just doesn't work with, because then you got to make a new vaccine, or you got to do a booster shot or something for the new version. So, and there's a new offspring of the 𝗪tože already called JN.1. So now they're trying to figure out if the vaccines are going to be good for that. So just when you thought it was safe to sneeze on somebody or cough on somebody, I guess it's not.
Well, you know what? To add to that, Eric, because when you mentioned that normally now who normally get it are the people who did not take the vaccine. Why? Because they still have that thought of like, when the people said before, oh, if you will have that vaccine, you're gonna die in a matter of whatever. So they have all the the conspiracy theory of this vaccine.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm not surprised. Who will die on this one? Well, of course, we have a lot of reasons. We have a lot of excuses. And, like I said before, here in the show, I took all the vaccine that is being offered.
Yeah, you definitely took all the vaccines.
All the vaccine.
You're the most vaccine person I've ever met.
It's me. I'm always the priority. I mean, priority is the senior. I'm senior. So, but then, Eric, when people start talking about vaccine again, and there's, again, another conspiracy theory, and now there's a new variant. You says, what's that? What's the name of the 𝗪𝗀𝗱?
Yeah.
The 𝗪𝗀𝗱. Okay. Now, is it here now in the Philippines?
No.
Okay. So good.
No, it's in. I think it's in 6 countries now.
All right. Now, and to add more onto this story also. Personally, I always even up to now wear mask. I only remove because we are in the show. Did you notice that if we walk there, I always wear my mask?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to. I had COVID twice, so learn from my previous experience. I need to take care of myself.
I'm just surprised. I'm surprised that it's still out there. I mean, I guess I'm not surprised, but it's just so when they said the President Marcos now has COVID. I'm like, wow, that's weird.
Mm-hmm.
Wonder how he got that. So just like I said, when you thought it was okay to stand in front of a cough,
no,
I guess it's not. I guess it's not so good. But good thing is he seems to be completely healed and back to normal as of today. They said today that he has licked it.
Yeah.
So he seems to be doing okay. But I'm sure we'll get back to COVID again. I'm sure it's not going to end as quickly. But right now, let's get to the top stories of this week, because that's what we do here on the World News Jam. We talk about the most interesting stories that are going on around the world. And just a quick update on the war in Israel, because that is still, and probably will be for a while, the lead story in the world news. And there is a backlash that keeps on coming to President Netanyahu there of Israel. As we remember back, Biden said that the only solution to the conflict in Israel was to create 2 different states, one Israeli, one Palestinian, yada, yada, yada. We've been talking about that for decades. It's not a secret. Everybody thinks it'll fix the whole mess, or it won't fix the whole mess. Who knows? But anyway, we keep saying it. Biden also said that occupying Gaza would be a big mistake. And I believe, as many people do, that is undeniably the truth. But he's still standing shoulder to shoulder with Israel. He just sold them 14,000 tank shells, which will be used in the offensive against Gaza. The U.S. has also a plan on the table to sell them even more military equipment to Israel. But those tank shells are real sticky wicket, I guess you might say, because there was a crew that was filming the cross-border shelling, and, well, one of those shells went into a Reuters journalist and killed him and injured 6 other reporters. So the question is being asked, why is the U.S. giving tank shells to Israel and at the same time demanding that they should stop killing civilians and saying that you must not occupy the lands that you are currently trying to occupy? The U.S. is trying to stop the war, yet giving the Israelis the tools to keep fighting it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Think about it. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I understand, the U.S., how it took immediately it took Israeli side, because Israel is an ally. They're a big ally in the Middle East. However, the problem being is that, it looks bad now. Before, it was obvious. It was obvious these terrorists came into Israel and committed these horrific acts of violence. But now it's kind of playing both ways. Now Israel is now also, committing, they killed a journalist and so the reporters amongst, many other places. And there's this other issue that's going on this week, which didn't look good. I don't know if you noticed, Israel rounded up a bunch of Palestinian men, stripped them down to their underwear, sat them up in a line on the street with their hands tied behind their back. About 100 of them were lined up, and they took photos of them. And of course, as you could imagine, outrage of the Palestinian government.
My question there is it really, are they really Palestinian? Is it already proven? Because the last time that I saw that news, they don't know yet who are those people, and when was that photo taken?
Yeah, well, the photo was taken just a couple days ago, right after they arrested him. I mean, there was other people that came in. The military had a photo. The people took photos, but the Palestinians, of course, came out and said this is just to humiliate the Palestinian men. And the Israelis said that even though they look and they dress like civilians, Hamas will dress like ordinary people on purpose to hide in the population. And the Israeli soldiers are questioning those men. They're saying, hey, why are you in the north instead of why didn't you flee to the south like everybody else did? In other words, the question they're asking, why are you here? However, according to these guys, fleeing to the south is just as deadly as staying in the north because, right now they're killing Palestinians in the south. So many Palestinians, they say they don't know what to do. They're stuck. And these, supposedly these men that they rounded up, they beat them for several days. They gave them very little water. Men suffering from diabetes were ignored. They wait for their hands to be unzip tied because they have diabetes. And so, finally when they let them go, their hands were all swollen up. And Israel had said, they told everyone before to leave and move to the south because they were bombing the north. So why are these guys still here? However, then again, they started bombing the south right after they told everybody to go there. So, moving to the south for a lot of these people, these men who, they just took the men, their wives and kids were still in the places where they lived. But they said moving farther to the south was not conducive because they have no place to go when they get there, and there's no food there. So they don't know where to go. So they are in the north still, even though they were told to go to the south, but they don't know to go to the south what their life is going to be like if they even get there. So I think that was the issue.
How are they going to resolve this problem? I mean, a lot of people are dying. This. I don't know how they have to end this. I don't know how.
Well, it's going to end soon on it. Well, it's not going to end soon on its own because it's 3 million Palestinians. They've killed 17,700 Palestinians, most of which were women and children, which is why the United States is having a problem with this. It's because, all right, now we're going to give you these shells to shoot at, the Palestinians. However, you got to quit shooting them at women and children. And the thing is that the Israelis made an agreement with the U.S. All right, listen, we're not going to fire at civilians anymore. We're going to play it cool. We're only going to go after them. And then they didn't do it. They kept on killing civilians. And so the United States has put them in a weird position right now. That's why Joe Biden last week had to make this speech about this. It's like, all right, listen, we made an agreement. You guys got to stick to this agreement.
Well, let them, I mean, being a leader of, the country, it's really tough because, what if something happened like this? It's not easy to do. You have to consult your people that you have to consult. It's not only the idea of the president to do something or a prime minister. You have to consult your people.
Yeah, well, I mean, of course, everybody's blaming him because he's the guy. He's the leader of the guy. He's the leader. But I think the big question is going to be, which is why the United States is coming out with these speeches where the Secretary of State said, listen, you guys have to stop. You promised us, you made it a promise to us that you were going to stop, and you basically, they're not doing what they said. The killing's actually getting worse than it was before. So the United States is in a bad situation right now because they're sending shells to Israel, and Israel is killing civilians.
It's really tough also for the U.S. really because,
it is.
The U.S. are trying to do what they can to help, especially the ally. But then, what if, the other party is not, even though they agree, okay, we're going to help you, but you have to do this. They said, oh, yeah, okay. But then when you're already there, you don't know. Sometimes the plans change. So maybe during the, I don't know, because Netanyahu is the one, is the one leading the, of course, he's the prime minister. So
yeah, but the interesting thing, here's something you can comment on. Is that the interesting thing, that interviews that I was watching last week, the interviews with the Israelis about the Hamas troops that came in to Israel on October 7th. And this has been big news. This is probably, we didn't even lead with this. This is the biggest story, I think, of the week. This horrific stories that these people are telling, that for hours and hours, they went, the Hamas went from house to house. Like, they would go in the house and rape the women and then mutilate them. And then while they were still, conscious, and then kill them. It's just, this incredible things. And then they would booby trap their bodies. They would put grenades in their hands.
Wow.
After that. Just incredible stuff. They had, some of the people in Israel had safe rooms in their house. So they would go in the safe room and lock the door. So Hamas would set the house on fire. And then they would either, obviously, as we found out, they would burn to death, or they would come running out and they would kill them when they would come out. So the people that were being interviewed, sometimes it was hard to tell who they were more angry at, Hamas or the Israeli government. This woman was cursing the Israeli government, and she was cursing Netanyahu, saying the military police, they knew Hamas was there. They were telling them, and there were video cameras everywhere. It's Israel. They have video cameras everywhere. And yet the police did nothing to help them. That they waited 8 hours in some cases, or even a whole day, for help to arrive. And it's not like it's far to drive anywhere in Israel. Israel is a tiny, tiny little country. So, Hamas was very surprised when they were there, because they were not in any hurry. That's why they walked from house to house, because the Israeli government, the Israeli police never showed up. And they seemed surprised, according to this woman. And actually, I listened to, I think it was 4 or 5 interviews with them been showing on the different news channels. That Hamas was actually surprised that no one was showing up. The police were never coming.
Okay, in the first place, did anyone call the police that,
Everybody called the police. And the police knew. The video cameras, there's video cameras on the entire border. They knew this was going on. They're calling, their relatives are calling, the police are calling, everybody's saying, listen, they're going from house, they're killing us. And according to that woman, the woman that everybody's focused on now, because her interview was just so startling. She said Netanyahu just does not care about his people. He only cares about his own political future. That's why they didn't even bother. And so that is her. That's why I said these people, I can't tell if they're more angry with Hamas or they're more angry with the Israeli government.
Well, for me, it's really hard to tell. But
and they asked. I was watching Morning Joe, I think it was, and they were asked. They had a government official there from Israel. And they were asked by the host over and over and over, why did they not respond to the people being raped and killed? They knew that they were being raped and killed, yet no one showed up. And the answer Israel keeps giving is, well, there were some errors, but we are looking into it. And every time that they would, the woman who was doing the interview would say, yes, we know, you said that already, but tell me, you can't tell me why you didn't show up? What were they doing? Well, there were errors, and we are looking into it.
Well, because sometimes if you don't know how to answer it, and you really don't know.
She didn't know how to answer it.
Why will I answer? Even if you ask me, Eric, of something, why will I say something that I really don't know?
I know they kept asking the question over and over, and I'm like, she is not going to change her answer because the government has told her what to say, and that's what she's going to say.
Well, and also sometimes those people would just. You don't know if some people are being paid to say this. It works not only it works all over the world. So, Eric, you have to say.
She's a government official, so her job is to try to explain.
Well, it's a different story.
Trying to explain what but I think she expected to be asked questions about Hamas and how they're going, but instead she was being asked questions. They just really drilled it about the #1 story in Israel, which is where were the police and where were the military when Hamas was walking around for 8 hours straight from house to house, burning the houses down and raping the women. This surgeon from the UK who just came back, just to make matters worse, he came back from Gaza. He was with Doctors Without Borders, and he was there in Gaza dealing with all these problems that are going on because there's so many injured. We're talking about the deaths, but the deaths are quadrupled by the injuries. And the thing was, he was explaining, I watched this interview with him, he was explaining about the terrorism in Gaza. But after a while, you realize the terrorists that he's talking about are the Israelis. That the Israeli, because usually we think of Hamas as the terrorists, but he was talking about the terrorists in regards to the Israelis. And he says that partly because he sees burns coming in that are caused by something called white phosphorus, which is coming from these bombing raids, which they're not supposed to use because it's a chemical burn that goes into the body, not on the surface of the body. So this is something that has been supposedly been banned. So of course, Israeli denies all this, but he wants the British government to look investigate war crimes by the Israeli army, which is already being looked into from other things that they have done. But this is what is leading the news right now. That's why I said, it's been going like a roller coaster, where one week we are all against Hamas and we think they're these, and then the next week it's Israel, and then the next week it's Hamas again, and the next week it's, it just keeps changing back and forth depending on the narrative that's going on over there, and it's just getting, that's why I look at the stuff and the stories that are going on, and it kind of makes me think, yeah, okay, make two states in Israel. That's not going to happen. This thing is going to go on for a while.
Well, if they really want to resolve the problem, they have to think about it. I mean, if that's the only solution that that is possible, then do it. I mean, that's my, my personal opinion about that, because this will not end, because look, with this thing happened, like October 7, when they, the Hamas get to Israel. So what happened there? Israel retaliate. It will happen the same, over and over again. It must stop somewhere, and then the leader should do something about it. And because there are people, of course, people are taking side. Who are taking side with Hamas? Of course.
Yeah, I mean,
they have their own ally.
I think a two-state solution now is not going to work anymore. I wish they should have done this 25 years ago.
Yeah, but
now,
it's not going to work. No, but then, if they will be...
if they should have done it then, but Henry Kissinger blew that up.
Well, he's dead,
He's dead, though, so I can say stuff about him now because he's passed away. Yeah. But anyway, so Netanyahu, listen to Lolly Tolentino. Let's get this thing over with.
I want to be in the middle of that.
It's... I hate to keep reiterating the same thing over and over again, but if they try and stop this war right now, if they stop it right now, without taking out the leadership of Hamas, it will never end. It will continue. And that's another issue that he's in trouble for right now. He was told 10 days before this attack happened that this attack is going to happen. And we discussed this before, but now it's just really becoming, this week, it became very prevalent that they knew. They knew that this was coming, and they didn't do anything to stop it.
Okay.
So, speaking of war crimes, Lolly Tolentino, you know who's running for president in Russia?
Of who else?
Vladimir Putin is running for president. Very important announcement. He's running for president in the upcoming Russian election. When many heard this news, a lot of people chuckled, I think, because it's kind of a joke, the Russian elections, as we have talked about here before. Now, if you're Vladimir Putin and you're watching the World News Jam here on DZRJ, we're just telling the news how we see it. Don't mean anything. No reason to throw us out a window. But anyway. Because anybody that runs against Putin, if you're anybody that runs against Putin, has a chance of actually giving him a real run for his money. Alex Navalny was the only guy that I know who's the biggest rival of Putin, the only guy that actually could have beaten him in a fair election. However, immediately he was disqualified. He was accused of corruption, which is his whole thing is going against corruption. That's Alexander's whole bit is about the corruption. Then he was poisoned. And then when he didn't die, they threw him in prison. They trying to erase everybody's mind that he even existed. So the only ones that are allowed to run for president in Russia are Putin's own friends. So that's why he wins by these huge margins. I won the presidency by 90%. Yeah, because your cousin was running against you.
You know what? If you are Russian, if Putin is running, don't even dare.
Don't dare.
Yeah. You know, because look what happened to Alex, and you know, poor guy.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Poor guy. It really, I feel really bad for him because, you know, they made these trumped up charges on corruption, whatever, and then they poisoned him.
Yeah.
And then when he left the country to get, you know, medical help for being poisoned, they put him in jail for leaving the country.
That's why I don't understand. That's why if you are going to, you wanna, you know, fight Putin, oh my God, that will be the, you know, that will be your end. And you know what I mean.
I mean, he's the definition of an authoritarian dictator.
Yes.
You jail or kill anyone who opposes you, or you declare some kind of martial law, and then use multiple reasons why you should be in power forever. And many people think it's just fine. You know, we thought that Putin's time was up before, because the Russian Constitution says you can only be leader for this many years. So Putin changed the Constitution, said that he could be leader forever.
Yeah, of course, that's what the dictator does. He changed the Constitution, so, you know.
You know, make a martial law type thing, kill everybody, any journalists you don't like, kill any opposing politicians you don't like, create martial law, and then put yourself in power. You can't have elections because of whatever reason, and then you're in power forever. And that's the way authoritarians seems to be their mantra, which is, speaking of authoritarians, Donald Trump is back in the news. I guess as you knew that was coming. The 4 times indicted, twice impeached ex-president, who's always in the news every week, except this week he has a new name.
I think I know that. You want me to?
What is the new name for Donald Trump?
Orange Jesus.
He is the Orange Jesus. Yes, he is, because of Liz Cheney's new book. She talked about in Congress when the Republicans were signing the objection to the electoral vote in the 2020 election. The Congressman Mark Green of Tennessee said, "The things we do for the Orange Jesus." So that has been sticking in the news. But Lolly, do not worry. I am not going to talk about the multiple cases of Trump or the multiple times Trump has violated his gag order for the court this week, because we talk about it too much. But the story that surfaced this week goes to the idea about what will Americans swallow? How easy can it be to get people in America to believe anything these days? Many in the U.S. believe having Trump as president is a good thing, even though this week he said things that would even make Putin embarrassed, I think. He said things on several occasions that if he was elected, he would use his power to use the Justice Department to go after his enemies. Now, in his previous administration, every one of them had either turned against Trump or was put in jail or was convicted, sentenced, and pardoned by Trump. Literally, every single one. There's not one that's not, you know, just stood behind him. Like if you look, I mean, I hate to use this as an example, but look at the Barack Obama, look at his administration. You know how many people are in jail? You know how many people have turned against him?
I don't know anybody.
Zero. Zero. But Trump, 100%. Either you have turned against him, wrote a book about him, or you're in jail, or you were convicted and you were. So anyway, but Trump said that he is coming after anyone. And he even suggested executions for those who opposed him. He alluded to going after TV stations or journalists who have spoken out about him, possibly removing CNN or MSNBC. And of course, the election is just around the corner, and Trump is doing great in the polls, even though he's in the middle of multiple trials. You know, there's some states that are even trying to decide if he's legally can be on the ballot, because if someone in the United States has been part of an insurrection, they're not supposed to be allowed to run for president.
Well, I don't know what's going on in America, really, and then why are people are still believing, and even the people that I know here, Americans, are still believing that Trump will be really, he can really be he can have another 4 years because he's great. They're talking about, Trump seems like for them is it's maybe he's God for them.
No, he's the orange Jesus.
Oh, the orange Jesus. Okay, okay, sorry about that. I forgot. But anyway, yeah, and and sometimes I wonder, and then I look at the people also who's talking about him, all the praises that they're giving, giving the orange Jesus. They are the same. Why did I say that? They're all narcissists.
Well, I mean, okay, well, Trump is the absolute definition of narcissism. But I think what's interesting is, we always talk about, Trump and the things he's done. He's on 4 different, indictments. His company is like on trial in New York. He's having all these problems. Everybody around him is either going to jail or he's brought them down. McCarthy, the guy that was Speaker of the House, just this week resigned.
Yes.
He just stepped and resigned.
Yeah, and he's not running again.
What is he going to do now? Has he been offered vice presidency? I hear again, I don't know. But the topper this week has got to be when Sean Hannity of Fox News was doing the town hall with Donald Trump, where they do an interview in front of a audience. It's filled with Trump lovers who are all yelling every time he says something. And he asked Trump if it was true that he was going to be a dictator if elected. And I mean, wouldn't you think that's like the easiest question to answer? You just go, no.
Yeah.
Not Trump. To everyone's surprise, including Hannity, Trump said, I won't be a dictator except on day 1. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? So everybody's trying to figure out what the heck does that mean. What Hannity actually said was, under no circumstances are you promising, you are promising America tonight that you would never abuse your power as retribution against anybody. And Trump said, except for day 1. So he actually goes, I'm going to close all the borders, which, by the way, that means something to the Philippines. I'm going to close the borders. I'm going to drill. I'm not sure what drilling for oil and closing the borders has to do with retribution, but anyway. But even before that, Hannity asked him if he in any way had any plans whatsoever, if re-elected president, to abuse power, to break the law, to use the government to go after people. And Trump said only, you mean like they're doing now? Mm. So in other words, is that a yes? That's what he's going to do? Isn't that what a dictator does?
He want to be like Vladimir Putin.
He wants to be Vladimir Putin. Yeah, he does, for sure.
And that would be the day, America will be what? America will not be there will be no more democracy in America. So if he says something, you have to follow him. It's like what? U.S. will be like China, that you have your dictator? So what will happen to America?
Yeah, I mean, they're saying that if he gets elected, he will never leave. He will, before, when he was elected, he put some actually really good people in his cabinet. Mm-hmm. The Republicans said, put this guy in, put that guy in, he put those guys in. And then he realized, hey, you know what? I don't want good people. I only want people that do what I say. So all the good people either were put in jail or left or, fired or gotten rid of. And all the people that he put in only people that would do exactly what he says. And right before he was about to leave the presidency, he really tried to put in people in charge of the military who would do his bidding. And if he could have gotten his way, if he could have gotten those people in there as the heads of the military before he was ousted as president, before they finally locked the doors and wouldn't let him back in, think of what he might have done. Mm-hmm. Why was he doing that? So I think that is what a lot of people are worried about, is once he gets in, the first thing he's going to do is get rid of the heads of all the military.
Oh yeah, I mean,
only put in the people
because he will put all the people that he wants, and that would be the day that America will be a dictatorship. There is a dictatorship already.
I mean, the one thing though that Trump has to do, this is the hurdle he's got to get over, because if you remember in the last election, 73 million people voted for him. Mm-hmm. So it's a lot of people. So he's got to get himself elected again. And right now, the big issue in the United States to get yourself elected is I can't even believe I'm saying this, is abortion. Abortion is like the number one issue when you ask people. It's not the economy, it's not schools, it's abortion. That's the big fence he's got to get over, because right now Donald Trump is the face of abortion. Probably, the people, they ask people, they do these polls, they call them what would get you to vote one way or the other. First answer out of most people's mouths, abortion. So we know that Donald Trump, he changed the Supreme Court to allow to get rid of the national law that said a woman has the right to choose whether she wants to have a baby or not. So Trump claimed that he was the guy. He was the guy that did all this. It was him. He and only him stopped the national right to have abortion, which is, of course, the touchiest subject in the United States right now. So for the longest time, Trump was saying he was the savior to the American people and to its unborn, and he alone was responsible for overturning it, all that kind of junk. Anyway, Trump has now realized, you know what? That's not very popular. So this week, he came out and said, you know what? Maybe abortion, maybe not abortion. I'm going to play it down the middle. I'll be a moderate. And so everybody's like, what? What are you saying? After all this bragging about how he was able to get rid of it, and now he says, yeah, I think I'll just kind of be in the middle right now. So, and I think a lot of this comes from, and let me ask you this, Lolly, this woman in Texas, Texas, where abortion now is illegal. And not only will you go to jail, but the doctor will go to jail, the hospital gets sued. So this woman is carrying this baby, and the baby is going to be stillborn, or she's going to have the baby, and it's going to live for a couple of days, and it's going to die because it has a horrible problem, and there's nothing they can do about it. So she wanted to get an abortion because if she has this baby, it might lessen her chances for being able to have another child. And so she went before a judge, and the judge said, okay, you can have the abortion. Well, immediately the Attorney General got a stay on that and said that if anybody gave her an abortion, they would be put in jail right away, and the hospital it is done in would be sued.
Wow.
And so this is the situation that the United States is in right now.
That is, wow. I don't know what to say, Eric, with that. I mean,
I know. Whether you agree with abortion or not, I don't even know if I'm really all that pro-abortion. Anyway, I don't want to get in the middle of that argument. But in a situation like that, I have to say, okay.
Yeah, because, the life of the person is already in danger.
I know.
I mean, why? I don't understand, Eric.
I don't know. It makes my head spin to think about this kind of thing.
Oh my goodness. I don't know what's, again, I will say this again. What's happening in America?
I know. We're just, and also the fact that is the biggest, that is the reason, that's what's going to make your decision between whether you're going to vote for somebody or not. That's the number one issue. But I don't want to get too much on that subject because that subject can go on for a while. It's a very complicated subject going on in the United States. But one thing I can talk about that is another big subject, which is now out, we thought was out of our minds, is George Santos.
Oh, my favorite congressman.
He was, we had a wonderful ride with George, but he's got to get off the horse because the congressional bus is taking him out of the station. The U.S. Congress finally, the 5 other times in the history of the United States have they ever expelled anyone from Congress, but they had a historic vote, and they locked the doors of the office of George so he couldn't get back into his office. After they voted him out of Congress, they escorted him out of the building, he was the biggest liar ever, and we know that politicians lie. But George took it to a whole different level. He lied about where he went to high school. He lied about where he went to college.
Everything.
He lied about being a volleyball star. He lied about his ethnicity. He lied about his name. He had so many different names, we turned out. He said that his mother died because of the effects of 9/11. However, she was not even in the United States during 9/11. She was in Brazil, where he's from. He said his relatives were killed in the Holocaust. He's from Brazil. He's not even Jewish. He said that he was Jew-ish. He lied about where he worked in the past, how much money he had, how much money he didn't have. He claimed he was unemployed just to get COVID benefits, even though he's making a really good salary.
This guy.
What did him in? What did him in was the people he stole from who gave him money, who were the ones that were voting for him, the one that put him in the office. That's what really did him in, is the ones that he, when he took their money given to him for the election, he went and got Botox and bought some really fine clothes.
God.
He wears those purple clothes. But anyway, he got 2/3 of a vote to vote him out. And when he left the building, Lolly, he said, "To hell with this place." He said, "I have colleagues who are more worried about getting drunk every night with the next lobbyist that they're going to screw and pretend like none of us knows what's going on and sell off the American people and not show up to vote because they're too hungover, and what the reason for not to show up to vote, to give their card to someone else like effing Candy so that someone else can vote for him." It was just hysterical.
Wow,
Anyway, so I'm going to miss poor old George.
Yeah.
But what they're worried about, Lolly, is what will George say? He says he's going to start spilling secrets about the Republicans.
Not yet, huh?
Actually, he already started.
All right.
He came out on Twitter this week, or on X, whatever you call it, and he went after certain people for things like insider trading, campaign finance violations, someone working for the Board of Elections while going to law school and not actually going to work. I don't know how bad that is. And he outed some congressional woman for being gay.
Oh, wow.
So George has really hit the thing, but he's found a new.
It's a new job?
He has a new job now.
Wow.
You know what Cameo is? Cameo, it's Cameo.com, where you go and you can send someone a card, a birthday card, from a star.
Okay.
Like you can pick a star. They have stars that rate everywhere from like really big stars to stars you've never heard of. And you can pay money and they will do like a 30-second happy birthday to your friend. So you can get George Santos to wish your friend a happy birthday.
How much does he charge?
So here's what I don't understand. So George, it says he's charging $200.
That was last week.
$200. But I looked on it, and in Philippines, if you want to get George to do it, it's 27,730 pesos, which is a lot more than $200.
Yeah, $200 is only 10,000 pesos.
But he will go on and say happy birthday. And I looked at some of his happy birthday cards. They are hysterical. So,
my God.
So anyway, or Merry Christmas. You can have him do all kinds of things. Which, speaking of Christmas, Lolly, we have to get to, now Lolly does not have COVID, just so you know. But speaking of Christmas, we get into health news every week. One of the health pieces I wanted to bring up is this Christmas, you're having your friends over to your house. And there's a big decision you have to make, Lolly, when you invite your friends or your relatives over. Do you make them take off their shoes at the front door?
Well, okay, let me answer that. I have, I think, 2-3 answers to that. First, in my own apartment, I can let anybody wear their shoes. Okay. But before, I remember, here in the Philippines, you leave your shoes or slippers at the doorstep. Because, well, it depends, because if your floor is clean, you can be barefooted. But if you think your floor is not so clean, maybe you can allow your guests to wear their shoes.
Well, let me just say, like, what if you're having a Christmas party and somebody comes in with their 20,000 peso shoes that is a part of the ensemble of the whole dress, and now you're telling them to take off these beautiful shoes? That might be the issue. But actually, what I was, that was kind of stupid. But because you come over with your 20,000 peso shoes, you want to show your family that you're making big money. So you want them all to be very jealous of what you're doing. So your sister says, well, you have to leave your shoes at the floor because she hates any kind of nice things that you might have. But anyway, so the issue I'm driving at is, for instance, what if you have children in your house and people come over? And there was this interesting fact that I found out that in the United States, now I don't know if they figured this out in the Philippines, but in the United States, according to them, 99% of all shoes that come into your house in a big city have some kind of fecal matter on the bottom of that shoe.
What is that, bacteria?
Poop. 99%. And I don't know how they did this. How do they figure this out? How do they figure these things out? But they say that almost every shoe has something on it. Something on the bottom of the shoe. And, a lot of those bacterias, They could be E. coli, whatever. And you got little kids. They pesticides. You walk in the garden and then you walk in the house and there's pesticides on the floor. Let's say somebody walks in a house and they walk out on the sidewalk and they leave lead paint chips on the sidewalk, and then you track them into the house and the little kid's crawling around on the floor and he picks up the lead paint, puts it in his mouth. So that's I think what they were saying is that maybe you should have people take their shoes off and put them at the door when they come into your house, especially if you live in the big city.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes sense as well. Why not? Why don't we do it? I mean, I can implement it. But when I enter my door, when I open it, and let's say I'm wearing the shoes, because normally we change it to slippers.
Yeah, I mean, they suggest scientists that came out and they gave suggestions on, because they say a lot of people get sick because people wear shoes in, they get bacteria in the house, especially if you have a party. You have a big party, a lot of people come in. And they said, first thing, don't vacuum or sweep, mop your floor.
Yeah.
And secondly, buy a bunch of these washable slippers and leave them at the front door. People take off their shoes, put the slippers on, and they walk around with the slippers during the party. And then when they leave, they put their shoes back on.
It's at some, apartment of my, a condominium of my friend. I have friends in BGC. They leave, they really leave their, slippers and shoes at the door, and they change it. They have like a very nice, clean, really slippers for inside the house.
Yeah,
so,
slippers are cheap.
They're cheap. So why not?
99
we can,
pesos.
we can do it. I don't know in America if you.
I don't know.
And
because it's cold in America.
Yeah, especially during winter.
It's cold up. But I just thought that was a very interesting story here at Christmas time, because we're doing a lot of parties. And what is everybody's take on that health issue of being able to wear the shoes in? But because obviously a lot of people are tracking in their DNA. And speaking of DNA, this is how I'll lead to the next story. You know what 23andMe is?
No, 23 is a number.
23 is a number, and me is me. But there's a company that takes your sample of your DNA, and they can tell you everything you ever want to know about your ancestry. So you sign up for the group. They send you a little test tube. You spit in it. You send it back. Then they tell you everybody that you're related to, like back to 10 generations. They can see back to your, I don't know who you'd be. What? Chinese? I don't know.
I don't think I look
Spanish,
Chinese. So.
I'd be back in the Germans or the Norwegians. I don't know, something like that. But anyway, the problem is they got hacked.
Oh.
Somebody hacked them and stole all their data. They stole a bunch of people's data. And you think about, they stole their personal info and their ancestral info. All right, that doesn't seem so bad, does it? But it actually turns out to be really bad.
Why?
Because this data has now been appearing up on the dark web, which is the other side of the web, the people where people go to do nefarious things, and it's being bought and sold and traded. And it turns out, the issue is not so much on the person, but the info on the people that you're related to. And they think this has happened that like 7 million people's info has been taken. And one of the biggest issues is right now, in people's ancestry, is they can look back and they can see that guy's Jewish. And right now, that's a big issue on knowing if someone is Jewish. They can look, in the banks sometimes, the banks have a question that they ask you, what's your grandmother's first name? What's your mother's maiden name? But if you have all their ancestral stuff, all these things about that might be bank questions. So, what city were you born in? That'll be in your information. And when you get an account in a bank, especially a U.S. bank, that's one of the questions they ask that if you ever have to get your password changed. Well, what city were you born in? And now the hackers out there know that information. So I think this has been a very interesting thing that now this is spreading around, that all these people, it's not just the 7 million people. It is the people that they're related to and the people that they may be related to. So,
okay, I have a question. Is this only happening in America?
Well, Ancestry.com is all over the world.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is when you are, this subject is specifically happening in the U.S. now?
Yeah, Ancestry.com is or 23andMe, they're a American company.
Okay.
But if you're a Filipino, you can sign up and find out your ancestral origins through them as well.
Yeah,
they do the whole world.
Yeah, I have a site that I go to if I want to trace back my, my relatives. But that's something else. But this the one that you're talking about is that, you sign up and then you have to give your DNA. So I don't think they have it here in the Philippines. Maybe in America.
Yeah, you'd have to send it to America. Actually, I know two people that have done it here.
Really?
Yeah, they sent their DNA back to America, and then they got their.
Really?
Yeah, they know a lot of stuff. They were able to do a lot of stuff.
How much do they charge?
It's $29.95 or $29.99.
It's like $30.
Yeah,
okay,
so
not bad.
So not bad. But speaking of people that we wish we had their DNA of, this week Time Magazine gave out their Person of the Year, and I was a little bit shocked because usually it's. We look back at the people that were Time Magazine's Person of the Year. We got Bill Clinton, Pope John Paul, Jeff Bezos, George Bush Jr., Vladimir Putin, Barack Obama, Mark Zuckerberg, Angela Merkel, Donald Trump, of course, Greta Thunberg, Joe Biden. That one year that the Person of the Year was you, where they just had a finger pointing at the magazine, it's you. But this year, Time Magazine's Person of the Year is Taylor Swift.
The popular singer?
The popular singer.
Wow,
the Swiftie.
Oh, okay. So because she is popular, an influencer?
She's a pop star. She's a big influence. She is worth $1.1 billion.
Wow.
Her albums always seem to reach number one. She's the top streaming artist on Apple, Spotify, 26 billion streams. Her music catalog is worth over $1 billion. Everything that has to do with her is $1 billion.
Okay.
She's tied with Barbra Streisand for the most Grammy nominations for Album of the Year. She landed the number one album in the most number one albums in a single calendar year ever. Her tours are sold out.
Wow.
Like you cannot get a ticket to the. Her concert movie broke every movie record. The most ticket sales in a day, in the first day, for a concert video. Wow. So there was something, the highest single ticket sales for a film in the 103-year history of AMC theaters.
Wow.
So she is now joining that group of Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump and Joe Biden, Barack Obama. Person of the Year.
Okay. Well, if she accomplished that already, I mean, making a lot of money, and it's billions of dollars in everything she does. So why not? At least there's a new face. I mean, it's not only the former president of United States.
I know. It's not a politician. It's not someone who is on a Nobel Peace Prize type of person. It's more like a Greta Thunberg type person. But she has her fans. They have a name. They're called Swifties, and they're very passionate about their Taylor Swift stuff. I used to have a friend of mine who was a Swiftie, and we used to argue all the time about that she's the greatest musician of our time, and I'm like, what? Are you out of your mind? And so we'd have this arguments, whatever. But they are very, very passionate about her. She has created a movement in the world, around the entire world. No matter where she goes, she is just absolutely adored. She's like the Beatles, but now.
Okay, I have a question for you, Eric. Do you know any song of Taylor Swift?
Absolutely not. I can't name a single song that she does. I honestly, I feel bad for saying that because usually I'm very hip to the new music, whatever. But
yeah, me too. I mean, to be honest about it, that's why I asked you, because in the first place, it's not our generation anymore.
I know.
She is very popular all over the world because of the new generation.
Yeah.
Not our generation. So,
And that is the kind of person. That's the kind of person and that people are looking up to. And I have to say, okay, because she seems like a good, a good person, a good role model.
Yeah.
So, here we go to Taylor Swift, Person of the Year, Time Magazine Person of the Year.
Yeah, congratulations.
Congratulations, Taylor. Yeah. You can give us here at the World News Jam some money if you get too much and you don't have any more. You can sponsor us here on the World News Jam. But for now, just in case Taylor Swift just might be watching, which I have a feeling she's probably not. But anyway, For us here at the World News Jam on DZA-RJ and RJTV, my name is Eric Lecain, along with Lolly Tolentino. We are out of time this week, but thank you so much for joining us here on this Sunday evening. We'll be back again next Sunday with more interesting stories going on around the world, so please tune in to us then. Everybody be safe out there, and we will see you next week.
The views and comments of the hosts and guests are not necessarily those of